Well, we didn't. And don't worry, folks. We'll get this fixed. It's on the built-in.
We had some really good jokes.
Yeah, you missed some good stuff.
Yeah. We actually weren't even doing the show yet. We were just letting you guys wait. Everybody's like, no audio.
Ooh.
No audio. Yeah, we know. We know.
Bad late reading episode. You know? Put some words in our mouth.
All this cleverness isn't coming through. I like that.
Oh.
Ah,
Don't worry, folks.
that is working.
That's loud. Why is that so loud?
Well, it was on the room mic or the laptop mic. Let's see.
Get with it.
I'm waiting just to confirm on my end, everything
Matt
should be
comes
fine.
into town. All hell
Yeah,
breaks
we're good.
loose.
See, everybody's like, there it is. Good. All right. So, you want to get started?
No. Not talking to me, are you?
No. You want to get started?
Sure.
All right. So it's Friday Live, everybody. I'm Mark.
I'm Nicole.
Oh, you should have told him he was
Yeah.
going to go next.
Okay.
Oh, I'm Matt.
I'll do this. I go.
Matt, say something. Please say something.
It's like some homeless guy just wandered into the show and we just put him on for the heck of it. We're like, yeah, we felt bad for him. I gave him some pancakes. We're going to keep him around for the morning.
Yeah. Quote me.
Yeah, so Matt is here. He was here all week. Actually, he's leaving today.
Yep.
But we
Kicking him
figured
out.
we'd get him in. Well,
Yeah,
he's
dude.
past the 3-day rule.
That's
So
true.
it's a little bit beyond that.
Yeah.
But he's going to leave today, and we thought we'd have him on Friday Live so you guys can ask questions for any one of us. But if you have a specific question for Matt, definitely let us know. And we'll put that on the show.
I'll be pulling questions from the YouTube chat as usual, and when we also have questions from Patreon.
Hey, I just want to say, Jesus says that my tech savvy between last night and this morning, I'm losing some points. I want to say that in both cases, the problems were resolved. That's
Right.
the key.
But I think Matt distracts you.
I do.
It is. That's true. Thank
do.
you. Thank you.
Yeah.
She's right. He distracts
Luke
me.
is definitely proof of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're just going to do our normal thing, right? We're going to answer some questions. We've got our Shepherd Lusk
Shepherd Lusk.
and his scented candle,
Yeah.
which I think he's probably quite amused by. That has actually kept us company all week long.
I told him, I said, you'll be happy to know they're burning your candles in the shop. I think they're farting a lot.
Well, and it's funny too, because like normally, not even something I would think about, but it was here,
Yeah.
and I lit it, and I'm like, that's quite pleasant.
Yeah.
Like, and every time we come out here, I'm like, it smells nice. I'm gonna keep doing this.
Ava and-
So it was a joke at first, but then now I'm like, I'm addicted to having these candles in the shop.
I meant to tell you, Ava and Mateo came into the shop last night, and they're like, it smells really good in here.
Yeah, for once, right? It doesn't smell like farts and beef jerky anymore.
It's more inviting now.
Beef and cheese.
Beef and cheese. Okay. Boot V wants to know, important question, who's better at bouncing?
Oh, from Urban Air.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
I think you both are equally.
I thought Matt was a
Bouncy.
little bit stiff.
I'm old.
He couldn't quite get the leg spread that I was able to
I
achieve.
don't have your agility.
That's right.
That's definitely for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So real quick, if you want to help support the show, you can just go to patreon.com/woodwhisperer. I do have one folk that I want to thank. Stefan or Stephen Sousey.
Saucy.
So thank you, Stephen. I'm going to say Stephen. Really appreciate your support. So if you want to help us out too, you can go to patreon.com/woodwhisper. Have a couple different levels, things that you can get in return for helping us out. And it's basically a donation, a monthly donation.
I think I'm going to add some new stuff to there too.
Well, it's a new
So-
year, so we may as well do something
Yep.
something different. Shall we get to some questions?
I
Is there any
think-
business that we have to get out of the way?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Oh, the pre-order for Matt's project.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, shoot. Last day.
Yeah.
That is one of the things we should talk about.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's the last day
The whole reason I
today.
came here.
Right. So that is funny how we completely lost sight of that. So Matt has the outdoor bench project that's going to be starting today. Actually, the videos will go live, and today's the last day to get the pre-order price on that. It's going to go up in price. So jump on it.
Jump
on it.
So where's that at? The Guild, the woodwhisperguild.com/
Yeah. Just go to thewoodwhisperguild.com and then follow the links.
follow the links.
All links.
It's quite obvious. All right, I'm going to hit this question here from Curtis Knight. Oh, by the way, we are getting our questions from Patreon, and Nicole will be grabbing questions from the live
I've already grabbed a
YouTube
few.
chat. Curtis Knight says, "Hi Mark, I've seen you use buffing pads in some of your videos. What kind of pads are they? I've searched and can't find anything specific to woodworking." You probably won't, unless you go maybe into Festool's line, and they have some pretty overpriced things, but You could also find those equivalents outside of Festool, and it'll mostly be like automotive. So the ones that I have, I mean, it depends on what you're talking about. I have some buffing pads that are kind of just like that white foam, and you could put what is it, like the abrasive schmutz.
Buffing compound?
Yeah, the buffing compound,
compound?
right? Rubbing
Right?
compounds.
Something compound.
The various compounds. So it basically has no grit in and of itself, but you use that to buff the surface. That's one thing that I would use. Should be pretty easy to find because those are for like standard buffers. Like someone who buffs out a car, that's what they're going to use. Outside of that, I usually have a actual buffer, and then I have a terry cloth bonnet. So that's kind of one of the terms you're going to want to look up. Bonnet, terry cloth bonnet. And you stretch that around a foam, the head actually has, the pad itself has a foam pad on it. You stretch that around, and then that's the one that you would use to like buff in Rubio or Osmo or even just a wax, something like that. I think, do we have them in the store? If not, I'll have Nicole put some of these things in the store.
In
just
Amazon
some of the
store?
various things that I use for buffing.
Buff. Okay. What do I want to?
It's
I
usually,
feel like there's like a Little House on the Prairie joke in there somewhere with the bonnet.
I don't think there is. I mean,
Do you know what that show is?
I do know what that shit.
Okay.
attaboy.
They missed us talking about you not knowing what Good Times and Rerun.
I'm sure
He doesn't know who Rerun is. Everyone else is like, yeah, who's Rerun?
Yeah, what are you talking about?
But you're going to have to let me know. I don't know what I'm looking for.
I'll let you know.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll put some links in there and try to get you a list because there's a couple things that I've used throughout the years. It's changed a little bit. Okay, so Alan has a question. He says, this is a question for Matt. I just upgraded from a DW 735 to a big Grizzly planer. I'm not sure where, but I think in one of your guild videos you mentioned adjusting the roller pressure on your planer. If you do that, how do you decide when to adjust it and how much to turn the adjustment screws?
Yeah, so that was a sideboard. So I was trying to flatten a board. So you're talking about the feed rollers that push the board down into the table and
The
sand it through.
pressure roller
Yeah.
dailies.
So in that case, I was trying to reduce the pressure because I was trying to remove a cup. I didn't want it to flex the board down
Okay.
and then have it
Artificially
back up
flatten
again.
and then just kind of keep the curve in the
Yeah.
board.
So how I set mine basically just depends on the amount of material I'm removing. The lighter the cuts, the lighter the pressure you want to have on there because those rollers are going to make an imprint into the wood, and you're going to have that to remove. But if you're only doing a lot of like rough stuff, you're going to have it more aggressive. But as long as the wood is getting fed through, it's not stopping or stalling or anything like that. That's kind of like the flutter test of planers, I guess.
Sure, that makes sense.
That's kind of where I have mine.
What are we doing with the
They're
mic?
saying he's a little quiet, so I'm
Well,
helping
he
him
is.
out. We'll just go
I'm
back
like-
and
I'm
forth.
like a
That actually might be a better idea
Just-
because he's gonna, even if you ask a question, he's
Yeah.
talking longer.
Yeah.
Okay, good idea, good thought.
I'm long-winded.
So Chris Kalnassi says, Mark, we should have a guild video on building a trailer for hauling sticks and such now.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I'd watch that.
I would too. In all seriousness, I know just about all your projects are built in SketchUp first to work out the joinery, but do you ever build completely off the fly? Never off, on, usually, on the fly for me.
I'll fly.
And just let your creativity come from the hip. Excuse me. Do you feel that, aside from the obvious of planning joinery, that you would still lean towards SketchUp versus make it up method? Any input from Matt here
Make it up
as well?
method, I like that.
I like the make it up method. I do that actually a little more often than you might think. The reason I do all my pre-planning in SketchUp is probably because I'm making plans for people.
Yep.
So I want to work out some of those details ahead of time. But one of my favorite things to do is to go in the shop with just kind of an idea of the final thing I want and then make it happen. And that can be very problematic because you can make really stupid mistakes. We just did these little step stools.
Oh, yeah.
And we had a picture, we had an inspiration point where we started, but we hadn't really worked out all the details. Now, granted, it's just dovetails, but when they're angled dovetails.
It's just dovetails.
Yeah,
Look at this guy.
Look at this guy over here. He's like he's experienced.
What he's talking about.
But when you've got a simple form like that with just some fairly simple joinery, you'd think it would be very easy. But what we tried to do was tackle it two different ways, one with hand tools, one with power tools. And then suddenly with the power tool method, you start to realize just how much planning is required to pull off proper.
I didn't realize it either. I'm like, this is a lot.
It was daunting. Now, if I'm going to make 20 of these things, I'm golden.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But when it comes to making, excuse me, just one, Matt was done way ahead of me. Right? But all that said, we still ran into just issues, stuff we did not think about because we didn't sit down, pre-plan it, and organize ourselves ahead of time. So there's always a risk, but I do find it very liberating to go into the shop. So I mean, at this point, because you're in a similar boat to me in terms of what you build and why you're building it, do you ever have an opportunity to just go in and wing it?
If I'm not doing a guild project.
Right.
Essentially, the only time I'm doing SketchUp models beforehand is for a guild project. Otherwise, the most I'll do in SketchUp is like a rough outline, so I know like the critical dimensions of things. So if it's like
overall proportions.
you get the overall proportions. Then once you have like a chest of drawers, for instance, once you have the overall size of the box, the dividers are going to be whatever the internal is plus the length of the slide dovetail. Yeah. It doesn't matter what the length is going to be, so that's all referential at that point.
Right.
Right. So, no, I don't. I prefer that too. I'm like, I don't like sitting there drawing stuff in the computer. I'm like, I already know what's in my mind. I can kind of.
It overanalyzes it, and I think it's something that comes a little bit more with experience because you don't worry about the mortise and tenon because you know how to execute that. Yeah. You also know what size the mortise and tenon should be. You don't really have to think about those details. That's been worked out years ago. Now you're just worried, is this curve right? Is the side...
Does this look okay?
Yeah, does this look good? Am I going to post this on Instagram and then immediately regret it because I didn't do something or other?
That sounds about right.
Okay, Kurt Allen says, just a follow-up to last week's question on using West Systems epoxy for hairline cracks in an end grain cutting board. You seemed maybe hesitant to use that method based on some of your most recent choices with low or no VOC finishes and food-safe alternatives. Are you, and Matt for that matter, thinking differently about filling cracks in cutting boards, charcuterie boards, where food contact is an issue? I did notice that Matt used an art epoxy resin that's supposed to be food-safe in a more recent video. Perform a mind meld while Matt's there and enlighten me, please. I actually, at this point, and this is not necessarily like based on extensive research that I've made this decision. It's a personal decision to limit the influence of dangerous chemicals. That's just a personal decision I've made. If I have an alternative where I don't need to use an epoxy or I can get around it, I'm going to try to get around it. Same thing with my finishes. If I can do an alternative that I feel is safer for me, for my family, for Jason who's working with me, we're going to do that as the alternative. Just a personal decision. So you have been getting, I would say in the last few years, getting even more into some of the resins and epoxies and things like that. What's your perspective on this?
Yeah, I don't care as much as you do.
He's young.
If you wanna,
he hasn't had any health problems yet, so he's still invincible. It'll catch up with him now.
Be careful what you say.
But I mean, that's the thing, is when you look down, like you get down to the nitty gritty of it, this stuff cures up. The chemical reaction that goes for that curing process is fully done. And then is it just an inert plastic at that point? You know, and I think that's what some people think and feel like it's safe enough because you're not interacting with it. You're truly not ingesting it.
Yeah, well, like you look at like the charcuterie board for my sister.
Yeah.
That has an epoxy fill in it, but then it's covered with polyurethane. So food contact isn't really happening between the resin itself and the food. Now we're talking about a finish interacting with food, not the resin itself too. So keep that in mind too, where it's like, well, sure, it's in there, but it's not food contact, direct food contact in that sense too.
Yeah. So, and if you follow, who was it? Not Jeff Jewett, the other guy that wrote that article on Pop Woodworking about food safe finishes and stuff like that, Bob Flexner.
Oh yeah.
So he's quite bullish on the whole, when cured, it's perfectly safe, right? So I mean, it depends on how much you believe fellow woodworkers and experienced finishers that say these things, but I think there is some logic.
I would eat off a store-bought dining table. If I drop some food on there, I'm not gonna think about it.
I mean, and just for reference, he would eat off the floor.
I would.
Too. So
it's probably cleaner than your dining table.
Most likely. My dining table.
Slobber.
Our dining table is in bad shape. Okay. Let's see.
Can
David,
I ask you a question?
Yeah, throw some in. We got a ton of Patreon questions just because our special guest here.
I'm sure it's what it is.
Hands-on hobby. When making an X-frame table legs, how do you figure out your angle and length for the X?
I'm going to let you do this because you did something like that with the farmhouse table, right?
No. I'm not doing X-frame.
No, he did. He said.
You did angles. So you did. It was more. Was it like a trestle base?
Yeah, but that's like talking about like a half lap on an angle.
Yeah.
On the X, right?
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, frame.
X-frame table. Yeah, one thing like this.
Oh, an X.
Okay.
Oh.
So how do you figure it out?
Algebra equation.
I mean, personally, how I would figure it out is draw it out. I'd do a full-size drawing.
Yeah.
And then just take the angles off the drawing. That's what I did for the bases for the rivet
He
tables.
just talks soft, you people.
Give the guy a break. What are you going to do?
We good?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Can I continue talking now? me some more gain.
There's not much to give, but I'll give you a little bit. Okay, that's all you get.
So that was for the
So you did a full-size sketch.
trapezoidal bases for the waterfall tables.
Okay.
I did a sketch. I drew it on my assembly table.
Mm-hmm.
I drew it the exact thing, and I just took the bevel gauge right to the picture, pulled the angle, and the base off of that.
I think that's a underutilized, simple method.
Drawing on your furniture?
Full-size drawing, take the stuff from the drawing.
Yeah.
Like I took a class with William Ng. It was the Blacker House chair, and he had full-size drawings, and I was amazed. I mean, at that time, I was just thinking, I don't know, the whole paradigm of chair building, it was just a different thing. But then when I saw his method of like, well, here's the drawing.
Yeah.
What's the angle? Okay, let me get my bevel gauge. I'm going to put it down on the drawing. There's my angle.
Yeah.
What's my length? I grab the workpiece. If it
Boom.
fits within that drawing, it's the right length. That's a perfectly valid way to do it. And if you can draw it, then you can build it.
Yep.
Pretty straightforward.
I guess you could do that in SketchUp too if you wanted to, but then you don't have the advantage of going right from the drawing. You have to actually pull the angle in the
Right.
drawing and then set your bevel to that angle afterwards. So
Right.
you can do either way.
Cool. You got more questions you want to
Oh,
throw
yeah,
out there?
they're just talking about your levels. Douglas Moore. Question for Mark and Matt.
Uh-oh.
What is your favorite table saw blade or the one you use the most often? Which do you prefer?
These days, I still just use the ones I've had for years, the Forest Woodworker 2. I use those the most. I have some of those lights blades that, what's his name, sent me? Ask Woodman guy.
Okay.
Alan?
Alan.
From Very Super Cool Tools?
Yeah. So he sent me a couple of those lights blades. Those are perfectly capable blades. I mean, the cut quality is great. No complaints about them at all. What about you? What are you using? What are you packing these days?
Still the same as always, a dedicated rip and dedicated crosscut blade.
Oh,
Yeah, I know.
overachiever.
Yeah. So I have the Freud glue line rip blade for the rips, and then I have the Freud Ultra something super duper crosscut blade.
Ultra Hoochie.
Yeah, that
Okay.
one. That's
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a two-blade man. Sometimes I just I put the rip blade in there because I was ripping some 8/4, and I'm like, well, it's still cutting pretty clean on crosscut, so I'm just gonna leave it in there. It's 30 tooth, it's fine. And I mean, you get a good enough quality blade though. There is a lot of forgiveness in that. It might not be the ideal, but if it doesn't tear out like crazy, you don't feel like switching the blade. It's a lot of times it's okay.
I always still do though.
I know you do. Like I said, overachiever.
I just like using the little table saw wrench. It's
That is fun. The best part is like when you nick your knuckles or you scratch your knuckles on the cast iron on your way in. It's a good time.
that is the best.
So David Wiggins says, I build a lot of drawers, really varying sizes from only 10 inches deep and 32 wide to 22 deep and 24 wide. But one constant seems to be really crappy drawer slides. I have spent some pretty good money on a variety of brands, most with soft close. I really want to do Bloom, but I am very intimidated to begin that learning curve. Are there any really high quality, I'm assuming ball bearing slides on the market? Soft close is a plus, but not needed. I'm tired of drawer action really taking away from the perceived quality of the piece. Thanks in advance. He brings up a good point, because there is a little bit of built-in play in a lot of slides, and I don't buy cheap slides necessarily, but you always the expectation is there's going to be a little bit of play in there. Even if you go with a bottom mount, they don't necessarily feel any sturdier to me. They might look better because you don't see the slide, but it's not like the action on it is super, super smooth. I think this is why some of the most higher end builders will just do wooden slides.
Oh.
Right? Or some
You just indirectly called me a higher end builder.
Well, that was an accident.
Yes.
But
I'll take it though. I will take it.
But if you're someone who's really looking for that rock solid piston fit,
Yeah.
you want complete control over the action of the drawer. I don't know how you would do it outside of going with wood. I don't necessarily know that there are any just spare no expense, higher level mechanical slides.
You might have to actually go to higher weight capacity to get tighter action.
Okay.
200 or 500 pound slides. I don't
Sure.
know, whatever the ridiculous numbers are
Yeah.
on those slides, because then
yeah.
the material in the slide itself is thicker.
Right.
It can't flex as much anyway. So I'm thinking to my Snap-on toolbox, so I just refinished.
There you go.
Refinished, cleaned.
Yeah.
It has the slides on there, the actual slide material. It's twice as thick or 3 times as thick as the sheet metal that you would find on a home center ball bearing slide.
Mhm, yeah.
And there's not that much play in those drawers, and they're 52 inches wide, and they don't do this.
That's pretty good then.
Yeah.
They're pretty wide. What about a hybrid solution?
Like
I mean, I guess, so one of the problems with wooden slides is it's wood, right? Even whatever material you use, chances are there might be play or they might be a little snug, depending on the season. So you say, okay, I want to go with these metal drawer slides, but I want less movement. I want good action. What about if you were to design, it would be total overkill and extra work, but what about a center guide underneath, like a centered drawer guide underneath with the regular mechanical slides?
That would help.
That would help a lot, right?
I'm also thinking like, if you do undermount, then you could have the drawer actually piston fit on the sides, and that would kind of carry your in and out, keep from racking. Because that's the way that I get my drawers to work really nicely, because they fit perfectly on an opening.
It's snug.
To that width.
Yeah.
Right? So if you have the undermount that's controlling the actual motion, and you have the sides controlling the actual play, maybe that's a good hybrid solution too.
And I wonder how tight you can get that. I mean, because those undermount slides are pretty picky about clearances and things like that, and whether you have a false front or not. But I mean, it sounds like maybe a hybrid solution is what you're looking for, because unless someone else knows of a brand that's just, everyone knows this is the rock solid brand and there's no movement, I don't know of that brand. But I would be tempted to just put a simple guide system in there made of wood that doesn't necessarily make it any tighter or looser. It just stops movement. Might be something to look into. And David Wiggins likes overkill, so
good.
He's an overkill kind of guy.
It's in a good company.
Yeah. Okay, I haven't pre-read this one at all. Wesley Strickland says, I've always wanted to give turning a try and finally have a mini lathe for my shop. From what I recall, turning isn't something you do a ton of, which...
Belly.
Oh my God.
Excuse me?
I'm
sorry?
Those heavy pancakes you gave me.
What's that?
Come again, sir?
Hello.
Little monster in Matt's belly just said...
We could probably hear it on the mic.
What I did was I gave him a quadruple stack of very thick pancakes.
And afterwards, he's like, that's like normal, like we make for the whole family.
Usually I make that for at least 2 or 3 of us, and I just gave it all to Matt as a challenge, and he tried to take the challenge.
I failed.
Okay, that was awesome. Okay, so he says, from what I recall, it's not something you do a ton of, which may offer more insight in my case since I will only be mixing it with the rest of my woodworking. I'm really considering getting a set of carbide insert tools, most likely the Woodpecker midsize. From your experience, would that offer enough versatility rather than having an arsenal of chisels and gouges, not to mention the sharpening aspect of the traditional tools? Thank you in advance. I would say absolutely. Like if you're just doing furniture parts, accessory, maybe once in a while you're just having fun, you want to try a bowl. Turning is one of those things that I think there's a lot of muscle memory. You know, the action of the tools, and being around Ashley for a while, you could see, and also in 2 situations, seeing how a brand new turner takes to her methodology. There's a lot of body English and things going on with those blades, let alone the sharpening and the angles of the sharpening. There's a lot to it. If you aren't doing it all the time, it's going to be frustrating, I think, right? Because you have to practice. So the great thing about carbide insert tools is someone like me who maybe even plugs the lathe in once a year. That's when Ashley comes. But I don't plug it in after that. But if I really do need to turn something, chances are I'm just going to grab those carbide cutters because they are way more beginner friendly, kind of dummy proof. No, you don't get as good of a finish off of them. But some of the newer stuff is pretty darn good. So I don't know, you feeling differently about that, carbide tools?
In this situation, I think carbide tools is fine. I personally find them really boring. So when I turn, I do it because I'm like, I want to turn. It's fun. I enjoy using the traditional tools because it actually has a little bit more flexibility, nuance, and dynamics of the cut. So you can play around with things a lot more. You're not limited to just, I have these cutter shapes.
Yeah.
I
What's
can
the
only
geometry
go, I can only go in at a scraping angle.
Right.
You know, so, but in this case, that makes sense.
Yeah, and all that flexibility is what, if in the untrained hands, leads to the catches and the balls flying across the room.
That's how you learn, though, right?
That's how you get the real good lessons.
Yeah. Wear your face shield.
I have a couple super chats.
Okay.
Moose did 2 super chats.
Moose
is back in the chat. Hey, Moose. He said, sweet, 3 legends on one show. I'm not really a legend.
Yeah, you are a legend. Like it or not,
Thank you, Moose.
on this show you are.
And then he said, sorry, I haven't sent you coffee yet. Been busy. Moose, you do not have to apologize for not getting us coffee. Thank you.
Of course not.
And then Kevin Windsor says, is buffing wood a euphemism?
Yes.
Euphemism. Is that right?
Yeah.
How do you say it?
In our family it is. Euphemism.
Euphemism.
What is it?
Euphemism.
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 Not an N, an M. Euphemism. Euphemism.
You don't, not just you, it's me too. So
Chisel.
My nizzle.
Chisel my nizzle. Okay, so Steve Jameson says he wants to upgrade his jointer and or planer. Please explain the differences between a helical head and a spiral head for these machines. The more I read, the more confused I become. Okay. You want to do this?
somebody say,
I think the confusion comes because both the helical heads and the spiral heads have the cutters arranged in a spiral orientation, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, a spiral head is typically one of those with the knives themselves that are actually, the whole knife is creating that spiral cut.
I don't know. I've heard it both ways though.
Or versus a segmented version of it, right?
Segmented would be like your knife one, I think. But that's the thing. I think in this kind of, no one's gonna be buying a segmented straight knife cutter head in this industry unless you're doing like commercial.
Right.
That's like, you're talking like $15,000 planer. I think we're talking like home shop, semi-pro shop, or like.
Yeah.
So the spiral head and the helical heads both had the inserts arranged in a spiral.
Yeah.
And then my understanding is that the helical ones have the cutters at a skew angle in that spiral.
I see.
And the normal spiral ones are square to the work.
Okay.
That's really becomes, I don't know what the names are.
Well,
what
and
the
is
branding is, but that's the difference. Is you have a square approach versus an actual
a skew angle.
skew angle.
So is the Shelix brand, do they have some particular like copyright on the design?
No, because you can get a Grizzly head, Grizzly branded
and it looks
head.
just like a Shelix.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can also get a Grizzly head that's just a square one.
So if one is better, I would have to imagine the one that we would call helical,
Yeah.
segmented cutter head with the inserts on an angle, generally, just in theory of how we use hand planes and things like that, should produce a cleaner cut.
It should be.
Be the better quality head.
Got the square,
Okay.
and then my planer has the Shelix head. It's got the shear angle on it. But
Right.
I don't know. Maybe
Which actually, now I think I understand why they call it Shelix, because it's the shear cut helical head.
Yeah.
Shelix.
Wow.
Well, there you go. Mind blown.
Mind blown emoji.
Okay. So either way, get it, because over a straight knife cutter,
Oh yeah.
it's so nice. Like not to have to orient each individual blade and get your dial indicator out and get those at the right height. Just having each pre-indexed insert that you could then turn 4 times to get new faces on it is like
For most
amazing.
people, they'll last a long time.
Jason just rotated mine. I've had that machine probably, I had it for like 3 years or so, maybe 4 years in Arizona. And we just now turned the heads 90 degrees, the little thing. So those carbide cutters on there are so durable that unless you do something silly and hit something hard with it, they're going to last a long, long time. Good stuff. Okay, I got one here from Mike Davies. Hi, y'all. If I thought I wanted to mill up a 10 or so inch maple log on my 14-inch Rikon bandsaw, cradling it in a plywood sled of some kind, would that be a terrible thought? If not, would my regular half-inch 3 TPI blade be okay? Or should I get some kind of specialty blade? This is all you, man.
That is much more forethought than I ever put into it when I did that on that exact same saw.
Oh, really?
They'd be like, oh, here's a log, here's a fence, let's go for it.
Yeah,
No
I got a
cradle.
blade.
Yeah, no cradle, whatever. Yeah, no, cradle's a good idea.
Yeah.
By the way, so you don't have to worry about rolling in the cut. But another thing people hate me for is I would just run the log over the jointer, get a flat face on one edge, and then that would become
Like bark and all?
yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah.
You're so gangster.
I know.
This guy's hardcore over here, man.
But yeah, it's cutting.
you guys
Well,
are such nerds.
Stop it.
can't help it.
We're in our own little world, our
I
own
know,
little
it's
bubble.
fine. I think it's cute.
He's so gangster.
It's so cute.
I admire it.
Yeah.
But no, in my earlier days, like I have that exact same saw, and I would cut little logs on the bandsaw in the shop. It works
Okay.
just fine. It's a bandsaw. It's no different than any other bandsaw that happens to look like a sawmill.
Right. Okay. That sounds
That
fun.
blade would work too.
Okay.
We forgot to mention that we did a meetup
We did.
on Tuesday. It was pretty amazing that we were able to do that.
Yeah. It was fun. Yeah, actually, a lot of people showed up
Yeah.
for a last minute, less than 24 hours notice, I think.
Yeah.
Turned out really good. So anyone who's watching who was there, thank you for stopping by.
Definitely.
Met some great people.
I took a picture and Mark posted it on Instagram too to commemorate
It did happen.
the rarity of this.
Yep. They don't happen that often. Okay, so Mike wants to know, did Matt redeem himself in the pancake appreciation? Baking soda issues resolved? Baking grease ratios ready for a guild project recipe?
No, because you can't eat my pancakes now, right?
Well, right now I can't. We had, Nicole cooked breakfast 2 days. I think a couple days we were just lazy breakfast, so we had cereal. Or we had eggs at one point.
I was ready to go.
Like, this is great.
By the end of the week,
By Tuesday,
you're
I was
on your
checked
own.
out. She started off really good. But this morning, I actually cooked pancakes for Matt, and they were passable. They were reasonable.
That's fine.
He seemed to be okay.
Heavy?
He had to run to the toilet afterwards, but
Not yet. I ain't running anywhere. I can't even move.
his belly says all you need to see. All right. Second question. Oh, that's what I just read. So my last one on Patreon.
Okay.
Donald Starnes. He says, my question is about the PM 1250. How much airflow is there, and how easy is the maintenance? Overall, is it worth the price? Okay, so the PM 1250 are the new electrostatic filters.
Oh, well, the sweet ones.
Yep, the one we got down here and the one up there.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to say they're worth it for the price because they were part of my standard deal with Powermatic, which means I didn't actually out of pocket pay for them. But they're pricey.
What's the price tag?
I think they're like $700. Nicole, can you check that out?
I don't know. What?
I don't know.
You're supposed to be like on the ball
I
assistant
know.
here.
My job
After
is to
being
gather
here, though,
questions.
I'm like, I would probably buy one of those.
Powermatic PM 1250. That's actually a good perspective. Matt not having one, he did ask me about it when he first got here, and I was like, yeah, they're great. They're super quiet. So
Yeah,
those things?
yeah,
it's really quiet.
$700.
Well, I could actually run that while I'm filming.
Yeah.
I guess the weird situation that we're in, we're like,
That's always a concern.
I can't run my air scrubber thing because it's too loud.
Right.
So I make a table saw. There's still dust floating in the air. I got to record something.
Yeah.
That thing's going off.
Well, we have these conversations about heaters and air conditioning too, right? Because in his shop, he's just got a natural gas heater that's just kicking out tons of heat, but it's super noisy, so he can't film with it. So
It's super noisy for us.
For us.
I think for someone working, they're like, wow, whatever.
yeah, so your concerns, if you're running a regular shop, you should keep doing that.
This was like if I had it running.
Okay,
and you're
it'd be
talking
that
over it.
annoying?
Yeah.
Like when someone plays music and you're trying to do,
I mean, it would be a little less annoying than that, I
Okay.
think, but
I did that to Matt. It was fun. But yeah, I think if you aren't, filming in your shop, you could, definitely deal with a lot more noise than we can. So all that said, these things are whisper quiet on low and medium. Even on high, they sound probably like a house box fan on its lowest speed. It's like you just get a little bit of noise. And if it's far enough away, that sounds like it's kind of far away.
Yeah, okay. Somebody's alarm's going off.
Yeah, there's a car alarm going off. So if it's, maybe 10, 15 feet away, you're not really going to hear anything. My favorite thing about them, aside from the sound, is the fact that you just vacuum off that electrostatic filter, put the screen back on, it's ready to go. So no more of the 10 by 20 or whatever size filter replacements that I used to have to do for my squirrel cage big mounted
I take
thing.
it outside and blow it out. I have
Or that.
I have a stock one that came with it 6 years ago. I just take it outside like a shop vac filter. Beat it against a tree.
If it's still catching dust, it's working. So I highly recommend them. They are expensive, but this is also one of those things. If, unlike Matt, you actually buy filters and replace them, there is an ongoing expense to that. You have to factor that into whether $700 is worth it. And I think they're saying like 30,000 hours on that filter before you have to replace the electrostatic
You
filter.
think it catches more because it's electrostatic versus the filters?
I would think so.
I mean, when I'm looking at that thing, it is caked. And I have one right by the workbench and one up there. And it doesn't take long before that thing is just caked with sawdust. So it's pretty damn effective. Whether it's more or not, it's hard for me to quantify that.
So whenever sometimes I'll comb my hair in the car. Or I'll run my fingers through
I
and
do
I'll
too.
have hair.
Yeah.
And then I'll drop it and it sticks to the plastic. So it's like this static, it sucks it in.
So they're good at catching Nicole's hair.
Yeah.
So if you're ever concerned about that.
Static
That's the
will
nice
just
thing is you can
attract.
put it in your house too if you want. Yeah.
I actually did bring those in-house when I was doing the home theater project.
Oh yeah.
Because it was in a living space and also the floor, when we had the floor put in the craft room. So anytime I've had work being done in the house, I will bring the one that is not mounted to the ceiling, bring it in the house and run it. And it had been super effective in that case. And also, again, quiet.
I have
So I'm done with Patreon questions.
2 super chats. We've got
Yay.
first one from Ness G, who's in the chat.
Yep.
Hi, Ness.
Hello.
Good day, Spags and Matt.
Good day.
Hope
Good day.
you're well. Please, does Matt have a mailing address? So I can send you a sticker, maybe some Tim Tams.
Oh.
You want to give Ness your address.
Yeah, Ness is the kind of person who you want to have.
Okay,
your address.
I will allow you to forward that information on.
Okay. You don't have it on your website. I was looking on
probably
your
not.
website.
Do you have Ness's contact info?
I do.
Just send it to her.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. I didn't realize you were so proud of your memberships.
Yeah.
Mark doesn't do that.
Well, you know, Mark's just all full of himself. It's
I
all
also
about Mark.
didn't
You know?
realize you were
member?
laid off.
What am I a
Yeah.
member of?
Did you know that he was laid off?
I mean, I don't really care.
Doesn't
He was
care.
laid off back in
He was like, I don't really
2015.
care.
2015.
This is before I know him.
Well, no, that's not true.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
it 2015?
Well, before you paid attention and knew who I was. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah. I knew,
He's
I
a
knew
member
you.
of the Society of American Period Furniture Makers.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, 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 I know.
Minnesota.
I know
he's-
that.
He's the Minnesota Woodworkers Guild.
Okay.
It's funny you don't say our guild in your list.
Well, I used to when you guys had that affiliate program. That was
We're a
right
little-
there on the website.
We're a little less official, I think, than SATFM.
Yeah.
That's fine. I'm not a member of anything, Nicole. I'm not even a member of our local Denver Woodworkers Association.
be.
You're probably right.
You're just lazy.
Make it happen.
Make it happen.
I just don't want to go anywhere.
Okay.
If we could make that.
Meetings are at
work out.
Mark's shop.
Yeah.
But Matt does have an about page, which is very interesting. I was reading it while they were talking.
Bear Creek says he never realized that Mark is so much taller than Matt. I'm not. I'm actually just standing on a phone book right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh.
He got lifts.
Okay, so look, we're gonna have to talk about this, Matt.
What?
Brian Jones.
How tall are you?
Should we? No.
Oh.
About the lifts in my shoes. Should we talk about this? Brian Jones says, I'm thinking about getting some Lee Nielsen chisels. I know they're going to be great, but what makes them almost half the price of the Veritas PM11?
The Lee Nielsen ones are half the price? Really?
That's surprising. I don't
know
think.
about that.
Are you right in that? I always thought they were pretty
I
comparable.
thought they were both like about 80 a chisel.
Be that as it may, we're not going to answer his question. We're going to answer a question he didn't ask. Excuse me. I hesitate to talk about this because I think it's something that I think I do want to do a little bit more testing on before I feel confident making any full declarations about like what we observed.
But you're talking about it.
So, but we're going to talk about it because we're amongst friends. So we did a lot of dovetails in the last 4 days, a lot of chiseling, and we
Yeah.
used Sapelli. So you say Sapelli or Sapelli? I think Shannon says Sapelli.
That's usually, I think that's what I say.
I'm going to go with his pronunciation.
Whatever.
So Sapelli, and pretty well figured, but this stuff was denser than what Matt's used to with his domestics that he's typically playing with. So we did a lot of dovetailing, and I'm like, hey man, look, this time I got some really nice sharp chisels for you. And
They were sharper than last time.
They
I'll
were
give you that
sharper,
much,
yes. So I pull out my blue spruce, right? So we start using these things, and granted, in the maybe year or so, maybe a little bit less that I've had them, I haven't actually done a lot of chisel work. So I mean, I've used them here and there, but not heavily.
No.
So we start using them, and we start seeing some chipping on the edges and fraying, almost to the point where after a few cuts and slices, you start looking up and it almost looks serrated. So I'm like, well, this can't be right. So I go back, I re-honed them to a perfect fine razor edge.
That was a good job on that.
Thank you.
They're very nice.
That's why there's like all this schmutz under my fingernails from sharpening. I hate that. So then we start working with them again. Same thing happens. And we're looking at all of the chisels. I've got dovetail chisels, bench chisels, and butt chisels. Mm-hmm. All of them are exhibiting this property of degrading the edge faster than you would expect a $90 chisel to. So recently, we bought some chisels that were going to That were going to be chisels. We bought the Stanley Sweetheart set from that guy. What was his name? I forget. He sent us the little bottle openers too.
Was it Jason?
Nick something.
Nick?
What is it, Jay? Oh, he's got a whole big letter there. Anyway, I think the guy's name is Nick. And Nick, okay. Yeah. So we got a whole thing of either brand new or barely used Stanley Sweethearts.
He bought them and he didn't use them.
And I figured these would be good if Jason wants to practice sharpening. We've got things that we can use for scraping glue. That's my favorite thing
Nick
to do.
Klein.
Okay. So I was like, well, you know what? Let me sharpen those up. Clinky, I think.
Clinky.
Or clink.
Sorry, Nick.
Let me sharpen these up. Let me see how these perform. And then we'll use them side by side throughout the rest of this project and see how the edge holds, okay? So both sharpen to the same grit. The blue spruce were actually sharpened to about a 2-degree micro bevel. So theoretically, there's a little more steel behind it. Theoretically, steeper angle should be a little bit more durable. In the end, the Sweetheart chisels fared better and had a less blunted edge, a less serrated edge through all of this work. So I don't want to throw blue spruce under the bus with this result, but it was disappointing, and I'm probably going to have to contact him and just say, hey, look, I'm going to throw it out there. This could be me. I could be doing something stupid.
And Matt.
And we know already what he's like.
Yep.
But it makes me nervous that I may have invested in these really expensive chisels, and my gosh, the fit and finish on those.
They're nice to use. Like, I like using them better than the Sweethearts.
They are so well balanced. The handles are just gorgeous. I mean, you cannot deny the quality of the work. I'm concerned about the quality of the steel.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm saying this publicly, which is putting me in a little bit of a hot spot because. But the thing is,
Just shut up.
Shut up. Stop talking about it.
Stop putting your foot in your mouth. But I've actually encouraged a number of people to buy those chisels, and now I'm concerned about my endorsement because I'm not liking what I'm seeing from the steel.
Gotcha.
So I actually bought a set of PMV 11, which is always on back order, so I might get it by 2024 if I'm lucky. And I want to see a direct comparison of how the PMV 11 holds up in side-by-side durability tests.
Yeah.
So we'll see. So that's the reason I wanted to talk about that is because he says, I like the Lee Nielsen. I know they're going to be good, but do you? Yeah. Like, I'm not saying Lee Nielsen isn't in the same conversation, but just because they're expensive, just because they have really nice handles and everyone says they're good, does that actually mean that their steel is better than Stanley's, very quick factory made A2 steel chisels?
Yeah.
So anyway, that was just me freestyling and pissing some people off, maybe.
I feel pretty good.
I mean, it's just honesty. That's all it is. It is what it is.
Michael Lust did super chat and asked if you have tried the Tormek T4 for sharpening.
Mm-mm.
Have you had the Tormek? We used to have I thought we had a Tormek.
I have a Tormek.
Because we worked
and I
with
think
them
it's
for a
the
little
old
bit.
one. I think it's the T3.
Oh, it's a T3.
I don't know if there's any major differences. I mean, there's at least one difference. The name is different.
It goes up
More
one.
numbers.
It went up one.
More
I
numbers.
don't know what the actual differences are between the previous model and the T4, but we do have the T3.
Okay.
It's a system. It's a sharpening system. And if you adopt that system and you have all the accessories and everything you need, it's a great way to sharpen a tool.
Do we sharpen the turning tools with that?
You can.
Yeah.
It's a wet grinder. It's just a big grinding wheel with a bucket of water that it spins through. So it's a pretty cool invention.
I have the Triton one, which I use for basically in place of a grinder.
Like to reset a bevel or something.
Because I still like using the stones.
Right.
But for resetting a bevel, doing that quick bulk material removal before actual final honing, it's really nice. You don't have to worry about overheating the steel at all.
Well, and there's times I have
quick.
those diamond plates, my lowest grit diamond plates, and that's what I'm resetting a bevel with, and I'm like, oh, this is miserable.
Yeah.
That would be a nice time to use.
So I just did a quick search, and in Tormek's forum, somebody's asking which one to buy, and someone
they
said,
still sell both of them.
He said the T4 is a substantial improvement over the T3. There's a new zinc top for housing, makes the alignment of the T4 much more precise.
Huh, interesting.
So I'll put the link in the chat for you, Michael, of this forum post that I found that might help you.
Very cool. Oh, you know what? And I think what we probably could address that was part of that other question about chisels that we didn't talk about is maybe what makes the PMV 11 different, at least theoretically, because that's what he's saying.
Completely different steel.
Is it worth it to get the Lee Nielsen or the Lee Valley ones because it's PMV 11?
Joe said Brian Nelson said there was a price difference between the two. One was 55, the other one was 92.
Really?
Really? Oh, that's it? They're really at 55 for Lee Nielsen? Really?
That sounds cheap, but I mean,
have they lowered their prices recently? Should I go stock up on?
Go pick up some more, man. But what we can say is that the PMV 11 is definitely a different steel. It's you could pretty much only get it from Lee Valley, right?
Yeah, it's their thing.
Okay, so they own it, and the idea behind it is it's supposed to have a more durable, longer-lasting edge that's easier to sharpen than the steels we're used to.
I have those chisels. I have the replacement plane irons, and I don't use bench chisels enough like we did this week.
Yeah.
So have you ever tested those in that way? But as far as the plane irons go, a huge difference between
Yeah.
like the A2 to the PMV11. It just lasts, and they go sharpen, and you're like, done.
And I actually swapped out my Lee Nielsen's for some Lee Valley models because I wanted to see
Did you
what
get
this.
the PMV11?
That's what's in there.
Oh, yeah.
You used them
That
yesterday,
was pretty wicked sharp.
and he liked the edge that was on there.
Yeah.
Wicked.
Wicked, yo.
Wicked.
I'm going to send you home
Sharp.
with some of that
Sharp.
sapili, just a little piece, and I want you to
chop on it.
chop the hell out of it with your PMV11. Seriously, and let me know
All
if
right.
how the edge holds up,
Okay.
because we didn't have any here to test. So what else you got, Nicole?
Got a super chat from Rich Tapper. Just moved to
Okinawa?
Florida. He's in
Not
Florida.
Florida.
From Pennsylvania.
Ocala.
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 Missed my shop, so this is the next best thing until I can buy my shop. Thanks, guys. So he's just saying thanks for the show.
Tim JB has an interesting question, but I'm not sure I totally understand. Any chance of having your webmaster go through? Well, no, the webmaster doesn't do anything with show production. But the question is about Friday Lives. Grab the top 10 or top 20 frequently asked questions and produce a show out of those. Is he talking about cutting those
Yeah.
questions out and making,
Yep.
to what end?
Like edit top 10 questions that we get asked on Friday Live,
And then like put it out on the Wood Whisperer site?
I guess.
Good idea.
That's a great idea. Tim, if you're not doing anything, I think that's a fabulous idea. And just send me the files when you're done. I'm totally game for that. That's a great idea. I mean, like if we had a team of people
Oh yeah.
that we could set some intern on that
Hey,
job, how
there's
great
a
would
guy
that
out
be?
there that thinks that you have a handler.
Well, he thinks Matt has
Ah,
one
You
too.
both have a
We
handler.
all have handlers.
Yeah. Whole team.
Nicole, there's my handler.
Yeah.
There's my other handler.
Yeah.
It's called my brother-in-law and my wife.
Get to work.
Why are you in
Making
here?
sure I don't miss meetings, making sure my zipper's not down. Like
We're not
sometimes,
very good at that job.
sometimes I have a whole clip of me announcing a giveaway that I was going to do, and my flies down the whole time, the whole entire time.
I would have still posted it.
Todd thought it was funny.
Mike Deemers wants to know, Matt,
What's up?
how do you sharpen your fishtail chisel?
I haven't.
He just buys a new one when it gets
Well,
dull.
I adopt the same methodology as my carving chisels for that one.
Yeah.
Where it's like I just strop it and I keep it sharp. I don't, for a fishtail chisel, it's just for like light cleanup.
Yeah,
So like you really shouldn't ever have to do anything to that unless you drop it,
right.
right? So
You haven't had to
otherwise
yet.
I hone it freehand.
That's
and-
all I can do, and it's not my best sharpened chisel because of that,
But, it doesn't
but
need
it's
to be.
close enough,
You're
right?
just doing a little bit of cleanup work with it. So it
It's
doesn't
like
need to be-
like a sharpening or a marking knife. Like it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. Do you want to talk about the blue
No.
spruce marking knife?
If you want to, I
Because
mean,
that was a whole different
it's,
debacle.
it's your marking knife that you kept
finally got
destroying and
it.
fixing.
I did finally get it, and I did 3 passes on that sapili, and it blunted the tip.
Aww.
I'm
But it's not
sad.
even blunted. It's like
It rolled
can
it
you
over.
please? There you
It
go.
rolled it over,
There you go.
and I'm a little bit upset about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
You ordered that back in October.
Yeah. Finally got it about 2
You're
weeks
so
ago.
proud and excited. Oh man, we can chop my new marking knife.
But look, let me say this. The handle
Oh, it
is
is-
freaking
it is
gorgeous.
beautiful.
It is so nice.
But you can't use the handle.
I mean, it looks,
Tomorrow.
it
I
looks
can
good on the
hold it.
wall.
You can hold
I
it.
could take Instagram photos with it. So there's that. John Funk says to Tim JB, he goes, yeah, that's a huge task. So says the webmaster. Good stuff. Show title suggestion is My Boy is Wicked Shop.
Shop.
Did they put that in the?
Yeah, someone did on the show title. But
Good
what are the
job.
questions we have?
Got a super chat here from Nate Daggett.
Nate.
I'm not going to read your whole thing because you said don't mention, no need to mention it on the show. But I am going to say thank you for the super chat. So
Well, thank you, Nate.
He won 2 of the sacks from the holiday.
Oh, my spare sacks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Win Mark's sacks. Okay. What else we
Yeah,
got?
sure. Got a question from MP. I have been using a biscuit joiner to help with alignment, but I seem to always be a bit off.
Yeah.
Any quick tips for a simple biscuit jointer?
Get a different biscuit joiner.
Yeah. Which one is it?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, I don't know.
Not all biscuit joiners are created equal. I won't pretend
You
to
had the
be
DeWalt
like
one
a connoisseur.
I remember buying that.
Yeah, I had a DeWalt one, and I got a Makita one now. I actually only bought it to write the Essential Joinery book
Really?
because I needed to show that. And I since I got the Domino, there was just no need to have a biscuit joiner anymore.
Yep.
So I have a Makita now. I found that all of the like construction grade brands, the Makitas, DeWalt's, Porter Cable, I find that they all have performed in a very similar way. There's just a bit of play
Yeah.
in the way the tool is built. That when we're looking for perfection between two edges, you might not be able to get it. There's always some slop there. One thing I've heard of people doing that can kind of help with that, you get rid of some of the slop if you can swell the biscuits.
Oh, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So don't keep your biscuits in a dry place. Keep them in a moist place. Don't put a desiccant in the box or anything like that. If you could maybe put them in a place that you know has a higher moisture content, store them in there and let them swell a little bit, and that might kill some of that play. But I think just the nature of the tool,
Yeah.
I mean, unless you go to a lamello,
Yeah.
right,
That's-
which you may as well just buy a domino.
Yeah, at that point, yeah.
The lamello is pretty expensive, but you're going to get more precision cuts on there and domino-like precision between your work pieces. But that's my only...
You are very girly. Are you okay?
No.
Do you need to go to the bathroom?
No, I gotta like lay down.
You gotta go do the poo-poos?
I'm all blocked up.
You gotta go
now.
potty?
You have to-
I
you
ain't
have to
going
make-
poo-poos for a long time.
You got a TT?
TT?
Okay.
I'm so glad I'm here.
I'm staying up there.
You don't want to be in between the spags.
There's your show tell. Matt has to poop. or something.
Matt has the TT? Do you have to go make?
Leave me alone.
I'm glad it's not too serious. That's good.
Yeah. So what were you talking about? Biscuits?
Biscuits.
Yeah, so I say swell your biscuits and hope for the best, but I think the play is just kind of the nature of the beast. I don't know of any mods or anything that you could do to a biscuit joiner to make it like more precise. Just the
That's just how it
nature of
is.
the beast.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Boofy says this is going downhill.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Was it uphill to begin with?
It was never up the hill.
Oh, yeah. That's so funny. All right. We got a question here from BJ Dodds. Morning from New Zealand.
Oh, wow.
So glad to finally catch this live, even though it's very early.
Mm-hmm.
Can anyone tell me an easy way to calculate the angle when trying to miter two boards of a different thickness? Does that make sense?
How does the thickness of the
Yeah,
two
I don't
boards
I don't
affect the
know.
miter
I don't
angle?
know.
I'm
I
just
just work here.
asking
I don't know.
generically to anyone who's willing to answer.
So what, like you have like a wider board, like a narrow board, and you want them to come in right, not have the wide board have a thing up here? Is that what? No, that wouldn't. No, I don't know.
Can we just move it along?
We don't understand the question.
Yeah, sorry.
And when it comes
Okay.
to miters and things like this, a visual is super, super helpful. So this format makes it hard. Sorry, we're not smart enough to answer that question. Yeah.
Joe Weymouth says, just moved. Oh, yeah. Okay. Just moved to Frutita in November. I don't even know where that is. Where is
I
that?
don't know, but I like a good frittata.
I don't know.
I have 2 bays out of 3 bays in the garage to do my projects. What would be recommended for the amount of outlets to be added?
More the
More.
better. More
Yeah,
the
as
better.
many as you're able to.
Yeah.
And if you cover them up with cabinets or something else, that's fine. Just it's one of those things where you start to move things around and you go, dang it, why didn't I just put one outlet
Yeah.
right there? It's actually not that. I mean, electricians are expensive, but when they're already here, adding a couple more outlets to the run is not that big of a deal. You don't even need extra circuits. It's just more outlets on the same circuit. Should not be a great deal of expense to have that done if you've got them out there anyway. I don't know if I could even, I might need to look at a drawing or something to give you an actual quantity, but I could tell you on this wall alone, and this is a 4-car garage, I'm gonna count my outlets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I had one up there, 8, and then I have 3 ceiling outlets that are available in the center. And I think that might even be conservative
Yeah.
because there's also 220 mixed in there. I've got some of those
Oh yeah.
the 220 110 outlets over there.
Oh, he's in Colorado.
Is he?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't realize. We're
So-
still new to the Colorado cities and towns.
Yeah, we are. We
How
don't,
long do you get to keep that title for?
I don't know.
forever.
Forever.
We used it for
Well,
10 years in
yeah.
Arizona.
We're transplants.
We're
We
like
don't
we're new
have-
here.
We don't have the native bumper sticker.
Ah,
We have the
so-
native-ish
fish
bumper stickers.
immigrant.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, conservatively then, 8 worked for me, but you are looking at a smaller wall, so put 8 on it. I mean, more is better, bottom line.
Yeah.
Let's see. Foxhall Woodworks. Hey, we know Foxhall. Matt, you film your videos solo like me. Mark also. What are some tips and tricks for filming by yourself?
Get good at knowing yourself. And that comes with time and experience and practice, but you kind of figure out like, here are like the normal shots that I typically do, and you kind of can move the camera exactly where it needs to be every time. You think about like, you're not shooting as much stuff you're not going to use. I think is probably the biggest.
Yeah, conserve. It's not like it's going to cost you money to fill up a memory card, but processing that much more footage, sorting through it.
It's going to cost you time.
Delete mistaken clips as you make them.
Yeah.
Like I know the camera you use has some shortcut buttons, and one of them with one click deletes the last clip.
That's
And
nice.
I used to use the heck out of that. I actually very much miss that with the DSLR because we got to go play, delete. So delete those clips as you go so you don't just have all these extra clips to sort through. I think really having a process, having a style, having a finished product that you know what you're going for, you generally just hop in and you know what's going to be potentially voiceover, right? What's just action with no talking, and when are you going to speak, and keep those speaking moments concise, few and far between, and make sure they're purposeful, because no one wants to see you just stand here and talk for an hour.
Yeah, and think about
But
like,
they'll still tell you that you talk
get
too
it?
much.
You get what I said? No one wants to see you stand here and talk for an hour?
Yeah, that's us.
That's
right
what we're
now.
doing right now. Okay.
Oh.
Throwing myself under the bus.
Yeah, you did that again, huh?
It depends.
And I will say though, I don't really film solo anymore because I've got Jason here. And part of Jason's job is not just woodworking with me, but managing camera movement, controlling a second camera, doing a 2-camera shot, which definitely is more complex to pull off by yourself. So having a second set of eyes to just frame shots is super nice, but
That's like, honestly, it's like the most challenging part of doing it alone is you don't have an actual camera operator in the moment following everything that's going on, paying
to say
attention.
your big head is in the way.
Yeah.
All I see is the back of your head.
So the more things you can do to your setup, to your gear, that makes it a lot easier for you as a solo person, the better. So for me, on the camera we used to have, the hot shoe thing, so the receiver for your mic plugs into the camera itself, gets powered by the camera.
Yeah, no batteries
and
no cords.
It's not plugged into the camera, and the mic pack itself has the lights on it, so I know if it's plugged into the camera, so it's actually on, and I know it has a red light if my receiver or my transmitter isn't on.
Yeah.
So just by looking at the camera, I can see everything that's going on, and not to worry about, I get to the post-production, sit down my computer, and there's no audio,
Right.
which still happens sometimes.
Yeah, that's always the best.
Yeah.
I will also say, if you're new to it, don't be afraid to write everything out that you're going to say. Like, you used to use a teleprompter.
Well, I don't recommend doing that.
But if you're new
That was
to it,
2006, and I didn't know what else to do.
but if you're new to it and you're nervous,
Yeah, I mean, you
it
should
is a
probably write an
good-
outline,
It's a good.
at least like talking points.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find
A
that helpful
script.
for like more talking videos. So I did the intro video for my trailer build. I had an outline of all the things I want to talk about and cover,
Yeah.
because otherwise I forget some point somewhere.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't know how thick we want to get into this. I don't know how many people care about content production.
Yeah.
But
I care.
I know one thing that Matt does very differently than I do, and actually I think it's smart because it's a good time saver, and it's also
man.
it's a continuity.
Where's all this love?
I'm
like all
fluffing
week.
you up here, man. It's a continuity thing for the audio. If he has a voiceover to do, a lot of times he'll film the action. He knows the voiceover is coming. He'll write that down, and he'll record the voiceover on the camera, just standing there reading.
Yeah.
And then he'll take that audio and do the editing on that later. With me, I do all my voiceovers in the office. So there is a dramatic difference between me speaking in the shop, that roomy echo sound, and then my near audio studio sound of a microphone in a carpeted office, which I don't know if that takes away from the video or adds to it, but yours has more audio continuity.
That's
It's
what
just-
I like about it.
It sounds smooth, and your voiceover is done when you get to the editing chair.
Yeah, it's all
right?
assembly at that point.
So
Yeah,
why
and-
don't you do that?
Because I don't usually write my voiceover until I have a rough cut of the audio or the video clips,
Okay.
and then I write a voiceover, pepper in some stupid jokes, and call it a Wood Whisper video.
Wow. Hey, I don't know if
That's all
Michael
it takes.
Boki is still in the chat room. I just saw this. He said, guys, give a shout out to Bear Creek High School. You're on the classroom
nice.
projector as today's guest lectures.
Bear Creek! Woo! Oh my God,
Oh, no.
That's
boy.
awesome.
That's,
You don't want these guys.
yeah,
Until
no.
we started talking about poop, and now we're the principal's like, no, no, no.
The kids are like, yes, yes, yes.
Oh, no.
Oh, that's awesome.
Michael.
Oh.
I've heard rumor that I look better 8 feet tall,
Yeah.
expanded
I don't know
and
what
magnified.
because of the projector.
The projector,
I'm
yes.
like, what are you talking
Oh
about?
man.
I really do. All right.
I feel pressure now.
Well, put your phones down, kids.
Yeah.
Pay attention and learn something. We're going to teach you something.
We're going to
You want to learn how to make money with those phones?
Yeah, let me teach you how to make
Something.
money on
we're going
Instagram.
to talk about
Sell your soul.
our idea.
Step number 1.
What was the idea for the class that you were going to do?
Oh, my Workbench Con seminar idea called, what was it called?
Get off my lawn.
Get off my lawn. Back in my day.
Back in my day.
That's what it's going to be called. And I'm going to start with a timeline starting in 2006 and then show everything that sucks about the internet since then. And we're going to start with my favorite topic, YouTube. All right.
HD video.
While we're on YouTube.
Yeah, I'll pitch that idea to Workbench Con,
Yeah, I'm
see
sure
what they
they
think.
love it. Yeah. Oh, man.
Oh, that's great.
He said that they loved it.
Oh,
Cheers.
good.
Great. Excellent.
Thanks, Michael, for hanging out with us.
What else we got?
I got a question here from Dwight. Dwight Hackman. Can someone recommend a good, inexpensive moisture meter? Don't you have the Wagner one?
I wouldn't call it
Yeah,
inexpensive.
that's not
No, but you
expensive.
had
They
one
sent me
before
like
it.
their Orion, which is like a top of the line.
Yeah.
That thing's expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Matt does a lot more with moisture meters than I do.
Because you have a lot of the
Yeah.
wood outside, right?
Yeah, so like Wagner has their Orion line, and the lowest one is a 910,
Okay.
which is like your standard like deep scan meter. But I think that's still like $300 something. But the thing is, when you buy a cheap one, you have to understand the limitations of that cheap one. Most of the cheap ones are gonna be the pin meters, and you gotta get those pins into the wood. You cannot just put it on the surface. They need to get in there. So if you want to know the actual moisture content, the core, you gotta get the pins in.
You got to
the
get to
core.
the core.
Yeah.
So like a cross section, you got to cut your
You gotta
board.
cut it or resaw it.
Right.
Because the other thing too is that some of the cheap ones, the pin meters, they have different readings depending if they go in grain, if they go parallel to the grain or across the grain.
Yeah.
So you have to look at that as well.
So keep your manual.
You may
So-
have to actually resaw the board and go into the face grain in the core.
I mean,
Oh, okay.
there's,
To get a
there's
real
one
reader.
right here that's $24.
Yeah, and
General
you-
Tools.
And with the pin meters, so the good pin meters, they have a slide hammer on them.
A what?
So something that pounds those pins
Pins
deep
sit on the
into
surface and you hammer them into
the
the wood
fibers.
so you get in there. So that's the thing you have to consider with the cheaper pin meters is you have to get in there.
They even have like on Amazon the best overall, best value, and
Yeah.
honorable mention.
You just have to understand the limitations of the cheap ones. If you want something convenient, a pinless scanning meter like the Wagner ones, put on the surface, it'll tell you what the core is,
Yeah.
up to a 2-inch board or whatever.
So
I
if
think
you
they
have
have
a
like
pinless,
a 1/4 inch and a 3/4 inch depth setting or something like
Yeah,
that.
that one does. The
Okay.
one you got.
Yeah, yeah.
The 910
That's
is just
what-
deep. The
oh, yeah.
920 is just shallow. The
Mhm.
930 is both deep and shallow.
Yeah.
The 940 has some of the data collection, and the 950 has a Bluetooth.
Right.
so the Wagner one's like $430.
It's expensive. So what about like calculations? Not all of them are doing the appropriate calculations,
They
right?
may not be because if they don't take into account different densities for the
Right.
species of wood and
Specific
Things-
gravity or something like that.
Mhm.
Isn't that what they call
Yep.
it?
the
So
specific
even
gravity.
even with the one that I have, you have to tell it what species. There's a code for
Oh.
the specific gravity, I believe. You punch that in, and then it does all the math for you, and also takes into account the conditions and the relative humidity. It's taking those
if you
readings
have those
too.
ones, yeah. If you
So,
have the equilibrium
so the
moisture
smarter they
content,
are, the more accurate and the less work you're going to have to
So
do to get the number.
When's the what I don't understand is when's the best time to work with the wood?
Never.
Equilibrium or
Like-
never.
Never just do something else.
Because I mean, you probably have stacks of
Yeah.
logs just like sitting there, and you're just waiting years, or do you
Yeah.
dry them? Do you?
Bring them inside and they'll dry faster that way,
Yeah.
but it depends on what you want. Even if you're bringing it inside, like now, if I bring a piece of wood inside my house and bring it to equilibrium in the house is like 4% right now. If I bring it back in the shop, it's a little higher, it's still pretty dry in there because it's kind of similar, but if it became, like in the summer, it's like the biggest difference. If I go from inside the house, which is 8%, to the shop,
Yeah.
which is like 10 or 11, it's picking up moisture.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of keep that in mind, like where you store your lumber, where you use it, and then where is this thing going to go when it's done.
Yeah. It's funny how often or how long you can go sometimes, and depending on where you live, blindly woodworking.
Mm-hmm.
In a sense, like you just grab boards, you build stuff, you put it in the house,
Don't have to
everything's
think
great.
about it.
And then one time you maybe did it at a transitional season,
Yeah.
or the wood you got wasn't completely acclimated or dried properly, and then suddenly you find out, oh my gosh, I have to pay attention to this.
Yeah, and if you're planning for movement, it's not usually a huge deal.
Yeah.
But like one of the things like you'll see is if you bring a piece of wood in from wetter environment, like in your shed,
Yeah.
you mill it, you leave it on a table overnight. The top surface is exposed to drier air.
Right.
The bottom is not. The top surface is drying, it's coming together, and the board is going to cup. That's how cupping works. Sometimes.
Cupping. That's how cupping works.
Cupping.
So I threw Dwight. I threw a few of the
You're just
moisture
cupping?
meters,
Yes, I was cupping, yes.
including the one Mark has in the Amazon store. So Amazon.com/shop/The Wood Whisperer under
man.
Friday Live.
Yeah.
Shut up, you guys.
Yeah.
Let's see. I got one from Andrew here. He says, I'm building the wall hanging cabinet and I cut finger joints, almost like green and green style. I'm worried about the strength of that joint. Do I need to add dowels for strength? I don't think you need to. I mean, if you're looking at wide finger joints, each one of those, the side of that is going to present a long grain to long grain glue bond. That's a lot of glue strength for something that's just a wall hanging cabinet. It's easy in those joints, especially if you are trying to emulate a green and green style. You could very easily drive pins, screws, and then ebony caps on those. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if they're proud, it can sometimes be a little bit tricky to flush them, or if you're just doing like a flush instead of a proud cap on there. But I don't really think you need to. It's easy to add it as a supplement, but I don't think it's totally necessary. I mean, I guess maybe if your wall hanging cabinet displays your heavyweight collection, you know, your collection of I don't know, standard weights and measures.
Yes, there you go. Yeah.
But if you're just displaying normal stuff like ours, which is like toilet paper and tampons, they're not that heavy.
Very heavy, yeah.
I mean, the
William,
tampons I use are pretty big.
Yeah, they're real big.
I want to
You're a
finish.
bleeder.
I want to finish the show. Okay, I'd like to get through the questions I pulled.
Sorry, man. Go ahead.
William Forrester, with all the talk of sapele, I'm going to start the Rubo and was
Ooh.
going to use sapele for the top.
Oh boy.
Yeah, heavy
Would
top.
mahogany be better for tool wear? Is it the same price?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
Depends on where you
generally,
live,
a lot of
too.
times sapele is given as the alternative to different
Are you talking
mahoganies.
like tool wear like while building the bench, or tool wear while like using the bench?
Yeah, that's a good question too. And ultimately, in a lot of cases, depending on the mahogany, you know, because there's the plantation grown Honduran, like the Fiji mahogany, then you have your standard African mahogany, then you have all the crazy variations that they just call mahogany, and they all kind of do the same thing. And then they say sapele is an alternative to those that sometimes is cheaper.
Yeah.
But that stuff is more dense than some of the Honduran that I've used in the past, like genuine mahogany. So I don't know. I mean, it really depends on what the pricing is. I think if you can get a good price on it, that's what I always say, no matter what the wood is, you get a good price, you get the size you need, go for it. But a workbench out of that's a rich workbench, right? It's like in terms of workbench materials, you're not going to see that many made out of a mahogany or some variant like mahogany. But I don't think there's any negatives really to using that as a workbench wood.
William Patrick Customs says, please tell me you're not going to Workbench Con.
Listen, Bill,
I'm not.
all week long, all I had to hear from Matt was like, oh, I'm going to workbench.
No, that's not what happened. I
It's
literally
like-
was running out of things to talk to you about. And I'm like, let me see me, Mark.
That's a lie, because you know that would never happen.
And then, all I said in passing was, hey, Mark, are you thinking you want to go to Workbench Con this year? That's all I said. And then Mark let himself down on his own path.
I have a tremendous amount
I just
of...
had an inception moment. That's it. I planted the seed, and he took it all the way there.
I have a tremendous amount of social guilt about my participation in the social aspects of like content creating world.
I get it.
Yeah.
So I have decided, because the thing is, look, there's a lot of people at these
You like to
events
hang out with
that I
them.
like. I like to hang out with them. What I don't like is answering questions about my Instagram followers or like, which hashtags do you find most effective? I'm like, I don't. They're all stupid. And I'm really like the cynic in the world of social media.
You take them down a notch, which is good because a lot of them just
Cap them right in the knees.
You need to be grounded.
But yes, I have decided to go. I am not going as a presenter.
No.
I'm buying a ticket and I'm
You
going.
might or might not see him. He might stay the whole time in his hotel room.
Playing my my PS4.
Yeah.
I may also wear a wig and go incognito, so no one asks me
You
anything.
should go to Mac Ramona.
And people deliberately navigate away from me.
Get away from that guy.
I won't be wearing deodorant. But honestly, it would just be a fun couple days to hang out with Matt. And there's a lot of other people who I've become friends with in the content creation community who are
GiggleCon.
GiggleCon. That's something you need to start.
I would go to that.
But you know, a lot of those people, in spite of some of the things where I go like, I don't like how they do things. Like, on their Instagram channel. Like, that's just how they run their business. They're great people,
Yeah.
like, to hang out with, and they're fun people. And
that
to
may
be
reach.
honest, there's a few exceptions. But to be honest, I do learn things when I talk to
Sure.
these people.
Sure.
Like the last time I had a little brainstorm session with, it was probably you, me, April. Johnny Brook
Yeah.
was there, and George Vondruska, I think, might have been there. We had a quick dinner, and that's where I was like, I learned I'm an idiot for not using an editor.
Yeah.
And that has been a game changer for me this year to finally get an editor. So these people are really smart. So yeah, I actually am going, and I probably will kick and scream and complain the whole time.
He'll be fine.
And Bill, I'll even send you some messages to let you know like who's annoying me. Send you some private messages.
It's Matt. It's always Matt.
Look at this guy.
Speaking
Look
of
at that.
editor,
Yeah.
Foxhall Woodworks asked if you had an editor, and he'd be happy to edit your videos for you.
I do have an editor.
You do?
Scott Barron. Barron
Hey.
something furniture.
Scott was in one of my classes at Mark Adams.
Oh, awesome.
He was actually very, very good.
Sorry.
Did a good job.
Sorry about that.
He is
Foxhall.
quite gifted in the woodworking stuff.
Yeah, I think he took a Scott, what's his name?
Have to stand up.
Scott Grove.
Yeah.
He took a Scott Grove like marquetry class, so he had this big panel that he was going to use for his coffee table that we made.
Yeah.
Turned out great. Okay, what
All
else?
right,
Anything?
We really should wrap up. I'll ask you one more question.
Bootv says, thank you for an awkward TWW. Wasn't that bad.
This was awkward. Oh man, you really got to step
So
up.
this is this question is from Janie Hoy. Since you're here building that little, what are you calling it? A step
Step
stool?
stool.
Step stool, yeah.
It says, question on the stools you guys made. Shouldn't Matt's stool be higher than Mark's? I just read this. I'm sorry.
I thought it was like a legit question.
Nope.
I wanted mine
Just
higher.
joking.
I wanted mine higher because I know my kids. I looked at the step stools we have, and in order for that to be useful for Ava,
It needs to be higher.
I need to at least get another inch in height on that. So I
Yeah.
went a little bit higher.
Yeah. All right. I think we should wrap it up. I have other questions, but we need to pinch it off.
Can we close off with this? Plan D Woodwork says, I just realized, but Mark and Matt are the woodworking Leota and Pesci that I didn't know I needed. Who gets to be Pesci? I think he's the shorter one.
Is he?
Maybe we're like the Woodworking Blues Brothers.
There you go.
You're,
Belushi
Should
or
have
you're
brought
the-
shades.
you're the Belushi to my Aykroyd.
Oh God.
All right, are we done?
We're done.
All right, well, hey, thank you everybody for enduring this, and come back next week and endure it again.
I won't be here.
It'll be Matt free.
Yeah, just
It'll be,
those two.
Maybe less awkward.
We'll be childless for that one. Yeah, so I didn't record the audio. I'm gonna have to pull the audio from the
Okay,
video.
that's fine.
Whatever, whatevs. All right, so any last words, Matt? Any passing? You want to let people know how they can contact you,
Yeah.
where they can find you, if they want more of all this?
Look in the notes because I'm sure Nicole's
Yeah,
gonna
I
click there.
put
You-
a
but
link
you
to
should
his
say it
website,
now. Say it now.
mattcremona.com.
Macro
He uses his
yeah.
name for everything, right?
Yeah.
He was smart about his branding and didn't come up with a stupid moniker.
Well, you know.
So he's like, just look up Matt
Man,
Cremona.
like literally, where was all this love like all week?
Oh, it's gonna go away in about 5 minutes.
Oh, it's okay. All right.
This is just
For the show.
public. I'm just trying to give a good impression.
Yeah, like people, so
Instagram,
people
Matt
think that you're
Cremona.
actually nice.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, Matt Cremona on Instagram. His YouTube channel's Matt Cremona.
He posted the most flattering picture of you.
Yeah, that was staged. I wasn't actually using magnifying glasses
Oh.
to cut.
Oh, I didn't.
I tried it. It just
tried
didn't work.
Well,
That was
it fooled me too.
It wasn't helpful.
he did try it. That was not. It was not quite as staged as you think it was.
There you
Yeah.
go. There's Matt's Instagram. I put it in the link. That's the photo that I'm talking about of Mark.
And DC Per Sad says you could find Matt at the Denver airport.
This afternoon.
Yeah,
Yes.
he will be there. I got to decide if I
Guild winner.
like you enough to drive you there.
Guild winner.
Um,
Guild project.
Guild Project winner. Who's going to win today?
Oh, winner, chicken dinner.
I don't have any. Well, I got the Patreon I could
Yeah.
choose from. Want to pick one from there?
Sure, pick one from there.
All right, let's go with Steve Jameson.
Steve Jameson.
He asked the question about the jointer planer and the differences between the helical and spiral heads.
Sweet. Steve, email me, Nicole@thewoodwhisperer.com to claim your project.
Yeah, boy. Congrats. All right, well, thanks for watching, everybody, and we will catch you next time.
Thanks for having me. this
You're
week.
welcome.
What
And on
about
the
Wood
show.
Talk?
What about Wood Talk?
Well,
Oh, okay.
Oh, well, don't worry about it.
No.
What?
It's a quarterly show. What are you talking about?
Ig-
New episode in a few months.
Ignore anything that was said in the last 30 seconds. Please. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Ah.